And that's precisely the question I want to raise now. It's a serious question of India's strategic concerns. China-Pak alliance, is that now our biggest security challenge? How can India tackle the ChinPack factor, as I'm calling it? Is this fused front, as we saw in Operation Sindoor, the new security reality India has to be confronted with? Einar Thangen, Senior Fellow, Tahe Institute, joins me from China, and TCA Raghavan, former envoy to Pakistan and one of India's most senior and distinguished diplomats, with us. I want to come to you, Mr. Raghavan, first. Is this a reality that we have to live with? ChinPack, we saw that statement at the SCO wanting to focus on the Baluchistan train hijacking, but not a mention of Pahalgam. Is this China and Pakistan once again even using every possible forum to try and target and embarrass India?
Well, the China-Pakistan strategic relationship is hardly new. It is a reality with which we have lived for almost half a century. And the fact that both coordinate their positions in international multilateral gatherings is also not in itself new. In the SCO meeting, what was significant is that a consensus could not emerge on the issue of terrorism. Now, that in itself is not surprising because India and Pakistan have radically different views on many aspects of terrorism. But given the fact that terrorism is such an important pillar of the SCO fraternity's own agenda, the fact that a consensus could not be reached is not a good development.
Einar Thangen, respond to what you just heard from TCA Raghavan. Here is the SCO, surely at the very least, consensus should have been built around what happened in Pahalgam. It was the worst form of a terror attack that even involved religious, the targeting of people on the grounds of religion, unacceptable. Surely the SCO should have come with a strong statement on Pahalgam, but it appears Pakistan and China simply will not even accept the terror emanating out of Islamabad and Rawalpindi.
Well, I think if you go back to your news report, I agree with most of the things my colleague has said, but if you go back to the news report, it was basically Pakistan and India who had a difference about what should be included. Pakistan wanted Balochistan in, and you wanted to, of course, the terror attack that had occurred. The problem, and I agree with it, is the SCO. It's supposed to be a way of just resolving core disputes with regional neighbors. But for some countries, it's a platform for tactical engagement on a political basis. It would have been great if instead of going forward with a kinetic action, India had put the SCO to the test and said, listen, this terror attack has to be followed down. If this organization is truly about fighting terror, we need an independent investigation. Pakistan has to cooperate. But we find that they are the state sponsor of this terror. The SCO has to do something. But the problem
but Einar, if I may just stop you, in the past we've seen that Pakistan has really never fully cooperated, whether it's 2611, where India supplied dossier after dossier, or indeed after Pathankot, where we were even willing to have a joint investigation for a while. What did we get? Another terror attack. So there is a lack of trust, a lack of faith. And it seems that China, rather than accept India's position, wants to use every occasion to try and showcase that it's firmly allied with Pakistan.
Well, I would have to beg to differ. This is a setback for China. Remember, they were hoping that this would be a grouping that would solve regional issues, not bring them to the forefront and make them that public. So it is certainly not something that Beijing wanted. The fact that this is a consensus group, right? That it's not China and Pakistan. There are 10 nations that are part of this, and they have to agree in order to have a joint communique. Means that 8 of them wanted to have something said, but 2 of them wanted to argue. Unfortunately, there's no way for the SCO has no dispute resolution mechanism.
So,
And that's
so
perhaps one of its weaknesses.
it's one of its possible many weaknesses. Does this show, TC Raghavan, the limitations of organization like SCO? When you have China, Pakistan, and India on the same table, do you really expect any kind of consensus to emerge?
Well,
Well,
consensus
it
has
wasn't.
emerged on many issues in different SCO meetings. In this meeting, I would agree that there was, as the host country, it was China's principal responsibility to steer a consensus document through. The fact that a consensus could not emerge to that extent is not something that China would be happy about. As I said, terrorism is a central plank in the SCO structure. They have a regional anti-terrorist organization inbuilt into the SCO structure. So a difference like this emerging at such a high-level meeting is not a good development. Essentially, I would say that the Chinese should have worked harder to see that a consensus document does emerge on such a central issue such as terrorism. India
I just want.
Pakistan differences are not new on terrorism, but there are always ways in making sure that some kind of consensus does emerge.
I just want to play what Shiv Shankar Menon, former Foreign Secretary and NSA, and someone who's served as ambassador in Pakistan and China, told me when I spoke to him a week ago on this ChinPack factor, this fusion of China and Pakistan. Listen into what he said. It's not just Pakistan and its army, Mr. Menon, isn't it China? Many call it ChinPack. Many believe China is the sort of elephant in the room. That even during Operation Sindoor, it was China which was guiding the Pakistan army. Therefore, we face the fear or the possibility of a two-front war. Does that, in a way, again, constrain us? Or do you believe that that is a challenge that we will have to now meet? That we're not just dealing with Pakistan, but we're dealing with what some would call ChinPack?
I think the possibility of two-front war is something that we've planned for and worked on actually since 2008 within the government of India. That's not a new idea. I think it's the level of fusion between the Pakistani and Chinese militaries that I think is something that needs to be, and for me is the big learning from this round, is we have to look very carefully into how far they work together, how far operations were actually fused, and how far they did. I don't know enough. I mean, I'm outside government, have been for a long time, but I think that is something we need to look at very closely. Not just on the military side, but also on the diplomatic
But
and
is
other
that,
side.
you know, you heard that about Shiv Shankar Menon talking about the fusion between China and Pakistan. It's existed in the past. It seems to have, Einer Tangen, only got even closer, as we saw in Operation Sindoor. Do you agree with that, that China and Pakistan now operate in complete tandem with each other, particularly when it comes to India?
No, not really. I mean, if you start looking at CPAC and things like that, there have been a number of disputes. Chinese engineers have been killed. And the Chinese have said, look, we're going to stop until you can, keep your end of the bargain. So this idea that somehow Pakistan and China are acting as one is it's good for nationalist propaganda, but the fact is China is its own country. Pakistan has a lot of problems economically. Their structure is very, very, very difficult. China is trying to have trade relations and trying to go through Pakistan because they need trade routes, they need alternatives. So they invested a tremendous amount of money hoping that this would help stabilize Pakistan, but that hasn't really happened. So this idea that somehow China and Pakistan are acting together, no. Are they friendly? Yes.
Okay.
Pakistan has stood by China.
Okay,
China has stood by Pakistan.
they're friendly, but
and
not
at the
acting
same
in.
time, India has not. All right. Let's be clear. There's been a lot of border issues. There are a lot of aggravation between these two, a lot of frictions. And, you can't expect China to be bending over backwards if you're, smacking them in the face.
Final word from you, T.C. Raghavan. You heard Shiv Shankar Menon talk about the fusion of China and Pakistan presenting India's biggest security strategic challenge. You agree with that?
Well, I agree that for military planning purposes, you should always plan for the worst. And when you have deeply adversarial relations with two countries, to expect a joint front is something you should be prepared for. But preparing from a planning perspective is different from making something into a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't think we should constantly assume that Pakistan and China are jointly plotting together. The fact of their close strategic partnership is well known. After all, from the 1970s onwards, there were transfers of nuclear weapon technology from China to Pakistan. So this is hardly something to be suddenly surprised about. And they have been undertaking defense exercises of increasing complexity over the past decade and a half, including joint production of fighter aircraft, etc., etc. But the point is that we have to manage both relationships, and we should not forget that at a time when there was a serious dip in the India-China relationship on account of the Galwan factor on the line of actual control, at that very same time, in 2021, India and Pakistan agreed to a ceasefire on the line of control. So, as I said, we have to avoid falling into the trap of a self-fulfilling prophecy where China and Pakistan are concerned. We have to manage these deeply adversarial relationships to our advantage.
Okay, let me leave it there. Not easy, given the fact that there is this element of fusion that seems to exist at different levels between China and Pakistan. But always appreciate Aina Tangen joining us, taking the time off. TCA Raghavan, thank you so much for your views. Appreciate it.